So today we're going to talk about secure coding. And so Max, I'll let you give like a short introduction to some of the things you're doing, and then we'll dive into really about five or more things that you commonly see. You're going to actually show examples of some mistakes that developers make that can lead to incidents or serious matters when it relates to exposing data and those type of things. So Max, I'll turn it over to you if you will introduce yourself to the audience here.
Yeah, so perfect. My name's Max. So I am a lead software engineer. I work for a small startup called Sparktonic. At that company, I'm really in control of the tech stack because I'm the only hire. So because of that, I need to be extra sure that I'm not making any code mistakes that could lead to any sort of malicious attacks on us or anything like that. But yeah, so I mean, if we want to get started, so these are some good examples of mistakes that I've made. I'm not going to say that these are the five most common or that these are the five most prominent or most dangerous. They're just five mistakes that I've made, and I'll just share about that, right? But if anyway,
Okay.
I'll just share my screen here.
All
You want
right.
to get started, Kendra?
Yeah, man. So you tell me which one we're going to do first. Which example, I guess, are you going to show first?
Sure. Let's start with authentication. So the most basic thing is just having user authentication. So I created here some examples. This is in Python and Fast API, but it's really just Python. And if you can read English, you should be able to understand it. So I'm just going to follow the track of this signup route here. Now, again, this is not real live code. Well, it is real live code. It's like a real live example. So I'm just going to follow the track. So when we're signing up, we can see that we're going to be creating a JWT token. Now, that token is sent to the front end, and all subsequent requests are validated by that token. So that token is going to tell you that the user that is sending this request to my API belongs to my system. So if we don't have that, then just anyone can access our API, make changes, post, put, update, delete, whatever they want to without user authentication. And that's just the most basic concept of application security. You don't want other people to access your API.
No,
All right. So
that's a very bad.
yeah. For example, with Stripe, somebody else could make a payment for you. I mean, that'd be great. Somebody else could receive a payment for you, which would be much more dangerous, right? So if their API didn't have some sort of authentication system, that wouldn't be there. So next thing I want to go up to is account access. So, and what I mean here is that my token that I create should only be able to read, update, delete, or create from my account, if that makes sense. So if we look at this example here, I'm using the account ID as the URL param, and this is really unsafe. Even though I'm validating this user. So this is a common method in the depends method in Fast API that lets you call a function before any of this code happens. This happens first. So I'm saying that I'm validating this user and I'm returning that user as the decoded version of the JWT token. So again, JWT is one version of user authentication. It's very common, and that's why I'm using it here. And also, I already have this created. But we're going to see in this example, the user is coming from the JWT token. And we're saying that we're going to update the username of the account ID. So the account ID is passed in the param, but that's not being validated anywhere. So what might happen here is, again, the JWT token is accessible on the front end. So if I log in and I'm Joe, then I can go update Jack's username. In this example, and I'm doing that by passing the account ID. In this example, I'm fixing that here by using the user that's passed in from the decoded JWT token. So that means I'm only able to access my own account and update my own username. Any questions on that or anything like that, Kendrick?
No, man, I'm following you here. So, and I would say just one thing too, like you're doing a good job. So just make sure if you can break it down, because like some of the people watching this may not be developers too. So,
Right.
so yeah. So, but I think you're doing a good job describing it, kind of like even if they can't understand the code, like what the unintended consequence would be. So,
Okay, perfect.
yep.
So I can go through this a little slower. So just I'm commenting it out here because I didn't really create this service within this function, But we can see that the account ID that's coming from the URL param, I can pass anything into a URL param that I want to, right? This could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This could be that could be any ID that I want, right?
And Max, quick thing, do you mind showing just quickly because most people don't. Most people see URL parameters like in their they're looking at it in their browser all the time, but they may not understand what that looks like. So do you have a quick where you can pull up a browser and just kind of quickly show them what that would look like as a URL parameter?
Let me check out Safari.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
Yeah, so actually, we might get the infinity mirror. Hold on.
that's okay. I mean, you could even put it. Let's see, Google Meet
Yeah,
would be.
Google Meet's using it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So Google Meet is using a URL parameter. So I'm gonna share our Google Meet,
Yeah, tell you what, hold on.
and
Let me see if I can actually. I'll go out of full
you I
screen.
maybe I can just copy and paste it.
Yeah, I'll go out of full screen, and I can. Okay, I can put it on the screen right now.
Okay,
So
sure.
because like on the top of my Google Meet, right after the like that's just is the meeting ID SZOZZP, and then you
Yeah.
have the question mark, and then you have auth user equals 0, right? Is that what you have in your browser also?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
And so isn't that a
Well, I
URL?
have
Yeah,
auth user equals 1.
interesting.
So that's a
Yeah,
query param. I mean,
yeah,
I you forget. I don't know the exact verbiage, to be honest, but
yeah. I'm
I
curious. Go ahead.
yeah. No, that's it. Yeah.
But is
You
that
can-
but is that what you're referring to basically? Is
That's what
that
I'm referring to.
I'm just curious now what happens if I change my if you change your auth user to 0 and I change mine to
I am
1.
kind of curious
Yeah,
too.
me too.
Let's
Okay.
try it. I
Okay.
don't.
All right, let's do it. Okay. If I change mine to 1, do I become guest? Oh, well, that's what happened. Oh, do you see this? I just literally, wait, we just did this crazy live. I just became the guest and he became the host. Yo, Max, are you there?
Yeah. So
Did
what happened on your side? Is
I
your
think I
auth user
became the
still
guest
0?
and I think you became the host.
Did I?
Yeah,
No,
like
because
it
you had to
literally.
let me in.
Yeah, it basically I was prompted for an option to join, like to ask to join the meeting.
Well, I think I asked to join.
Well, yeah, I changed back to 0 to get host back. That's really interesting. Okay, all right, so we'll get back on track here.
Yeah, I was just curious. I was like, "There's no
Yeah,
way they just keep changing." I'll be next time I'm in like a big work meeting. I'm gonna try that.
yeah, dude,
And
that's
maybe that's just like some huge mistake. I think somebody would have noticed that one by now.
I think so, man. I think so. Like that'd
Yeah,
be wild. Okay, so but I think for if you watch the video, like that's a great example of what using URL.
yeah. It's not
Yeah,
that URL parameters are unsafe,
yeah.
right? Yeah. I don't know if we're still recording this
No,
part
we're
of.
still live. Yeah.
All right. I mean, you're gonna edit all this down. That's what I
No,
mean, right?
actually, I'm
Like,
going to leave that in because I think that's
oh,
that's the greatest example. Like, I mean, that drives the point of how like what you can do with URL parameters. Because what if I discover other things and I feed that into it? Because I mean, Google does this all the time. They may have like 15, 20, 30, 100 other parameters you can feed into your browser string to do other features. You know, make it start in full screen, make it, automatically make this person have an identifier. So no, so I'm gonna leave that in because I think that actually emphasizes the point quite a lot.
right.
Yeah.
And URL parameters are not. I don't want to say that they're. Hold on, I'm sharing my whole window.
Okay.
URL parameters are not necessarily dangerous, but it's sort of just the way that in this example it's being used,
Yeah.
where it's conflicting with the actual user,
Yeah.
right? So that's why I would say that this is an unsafe example. So just for a more fully in-depth like understanding of how code works, like if you pass in something in a URL parameter, you can use that in your function. And in this instance, we're passing the account ID, and I'm calling this function hypothetically, even though it's commented out, that would update the username where the account, and passing in the account ID from the URL param.
Okay.
Now, this isn't inherently unsafe to use a URL param, but it is in this instance because it's conflicting with the user validation that we're doing. So
Okay.
if I click on this function and we go to that, I see that essentially I'm getting the token from the headers, and then I am validating that token and then returning the decoded version of that token.
Okay.
In the decoded version of that token, that would be where the account ID is.
Okay.
So because I can pass anything into those URL params, that's why this is a really unsafe practice. So this
Okay.
is like allowing one user to access another user's account.
Okay.
And given that, the URL token is on the front end, anything that's on the front end, you should assume that it's accessible by the user, especially this, if you're using, very often this will be stored in a cookie or local storage, and those are completely accessible by someone that's a little bit savvy and just knows how to inspect and check their cookies, right?
Yeah.
So these are public keys. So you need to make sure that they can only access the right account. Because even if I take that and I start playing with the from like Postman or somewhere where I'm making malicious API requests, I'm only going to be able to change my own account. And what's the point of doing that if I can already do that from the website, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's do SQL injection next. Kendrick, would you say that was a good thorough explanation of what I was going through there? Do you have any questions there before I move on?
No, that was good, man. So I'm learning
Okay,
too.
great.
So
Sure. So SQL injection is probably the most common mistake. Now, the way I set it up is probably not the most common way that this is made, but I think that it's really verbose in that, like, you can see how somebody could be malicious here and somebody could select different fields. So I just set up like a really obvious example, even if this isn't the most common one. So let's take a look at this first function, which is a post, even though this is not really the right SQL for a post, but whatever, right? So let's say that in my post request where we have a body and our body has some sort of data in it, and we have an entry in the JSON of the body that is fields, right?
Okay.
So the fields is what we want to get back. So we want to dynamically select the fields from our database and return those. It's not a super common use case, but I've done it. I've done it with similar, I've done this before, but it's not every. So in this example, we can see that we're just saying whatever fields you put in the body,
Okay.
we're returning those, right? So this is just a little, I'm taking the fields to select and I'm joining those all together. And then I'm saying, get all of those fields. This is the SQL statement, making a pretend database. And then I am fakely querying that database with the SQL statement that is querying whatever fields you want. So let's say that I can select the password from the user. I can select the phone number. I can select the email. I can select the credit card number. I can, not that that would usually be in the user's table, but
Yeah.
I can select any item from the user's table and get their information in this instance. And that might be their address, their email, their phone number, everything like that. Kendrick, do you have any questions on that?
So basically, as long as you know the field names, you ahead of time, basically in this scenario, you can query for it, right? You can do an injection to query for it. Is that what I'm?
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
that's basically it. Yeah, that's pretty much it in this example. Now, in this follow-up example, I'm basically saying that it has to be one of these three fields. So
Okay.
you can only get the username, the ID, or the level. I don't know, I'm pretending we're playing a video game, right? Level 70, right? And in this function, I'm just filtering for that. Now, normally, you're going to do that with some sort of typing. Up here is one way to do that. I've figured because not everybody knows Fast API and Python, and instead of doing all that typing, I'm going to be very obvious and just say, okay, the fields to select are here. These are the fields that are allowed. If the fields that we're selecting are not in allowed fields, don't add them.
Okay.
And in this example, we're only returning the fields that are allowed. Is there any questions there or anything like that? So there's a lot of other
Yeah.
ways that this can happen as well too.
So
But
yeah, you're restricting what the user can do to ensure that they can't basically do anything nefarious here, right? So
right. So this is, I mean, this is one example. And again, normally you would say like the body of this is of type, safe query post, and I'll make a class and have a model for it.
Okay.
And the model kind of does that for me. But that again is more of a fast API Python, a little more complicated than this. So I just wanted to make it as simple as possible,
okay.
even if this looks less simple. But all right. And then the last item that I've definitely made this mistake, especially when I was first getting started doing some practice projects, is there needs to be a need to know basis. And what I mean by that is, okay, so for this example, I said, let's pretend like we're searching for somebody to add them as a friend in an application. So maybe you're on Xbox Live and you're searching for someone's gamer tag,
Okay.
right? So this is almost like an example of a mistake that could be made there. So, and I'm passing again, if you see, I'm using a URL param here, and that doesn't make it inherently dangerous, like I said before. And that's just a search string, and it's a string. And I'm validating that we are a real user, right?
Okay.
So, and then I'm saying, I'm going to find the user. Oh, I'm going to find that user, and I'm going to return the entire user object. So again, in that user object, that could have their email, their phone number, their home address, their credit card, it could have a link to another table for their credit card information, anything like that. So that's going to be a really unsafe query to return all that to another user, because I can then take this, go to your API, take my token, and query for other users based on their usernames, pretty much. So the corrected version here is I'm taking that search string, I'm finding all my users, and then I'm only returning the users that the information that I want. So the username and the ID of the user in this example.
Okay.
So the other user does not need to know all the other stuff about this guy. User X does not need to know user Y's email.
Correct.
They need to know their username, and there's no reason they need to know anything else, so don't give them anything else. And that's pretty much it. So then I have one more example, and I actually created a little, I didn't do any actual coding, but set up a little web app. And so I didn't even change anything from the create React app. Well, it's not create React app, sorry. So I just set up Vite, and then I deployed it with Vercel, which is like one of the easiest ways to deploy things.
Now, what is Vite and what is Vercel? I'm not familiar with either of those.
Sure. Vite is, I think it's hard to like, it's similar to Webpack.
Okay, what is Webpack?
So Vite configures front end code for the browser.
Okay, gotcha.
Let's put it that way. So Vite will work with, I think, Vue, React. What are some more? Like Next.js, I think. I think there's a ton of different front end frameworks that work with. What's the other big one that I'm Svelte is definitely on Vite.
Okay.
And then what's like the real big one that I can't believe I'm forgetting it right now. But anyway, so what I'm trying to, basically the point of what I'm trying to get at here is everything on the front end, whether it's in the .env, whether it's a hard, is accessible to a user. And so you can see that in my .env, I'm creating a variable.
All right.
Now, this is not a fake key. Yeah. I mean, this is a completely fake key.
Yeah.
Definitely not my my OpenAI key.
Okay.
And I'm just making a fake fetch to, that uses that fake key. And even though I'm pulling that from the .env, if I actually go to this URL where I've deployed this,
okay,
I'm gonna have to present the URL. And if I come here, I'm going to inspect. I'm going to go to my network tab, and I'm going to refresh because it ran right away.
Okay.
And check it out. There's that fetch that I coded in. And I can come here, and I can go to headers, and I can look for authorization. Look, there's my fake key right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I'm going to, for example, fetch OpenAI from the front end, I want to have it layered. So I want it to be front end to back end to OpenAI to back end to front end. I don't want to go front end with a secret key to anything. There should be no secret keys on the front end. They are fully accessible. Gotcha. And that's pretty much what I had for us today. Okay. Do you have any follow-up questions or anything like that?
No, this kind of reminds me, a good example is, like, I'm curious what your thoughts are, because, for instance, like, if I go I thought about this the other day, when you go to the voting site, you can just put in what your date of birth and name or something like that, and pretty much query for anybody. Like, if you know 2 pieces of PII, I think you can query for anybody, and then it gives you the rest of their information, right? Like their address and stuff like that. So just kind of curious, like when I see systems like that, like that to me seems like that's not a good thing, because essentially if you know what you're doing, you can use it to query infinitely. You know what I'm saying? So you probably got to have, you'd have to have some pieces of information, but I'm just not a big fan of those type of systems, because you can use them for OSINT, if you know enough, and you can get people's date of birth and name from just about anywhere, so.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that I haven't done that before too. Fun just to try.
Yeah.
I've actually, yeah. And so the answer is I really don't like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I think it's unfortunately not under my control, and I think it's for transparency. I don't know the full reason, to be honest. I'm not fully familiar with their case for having that, so I can't say. But it's probably not the most comfortable feeling.
Okay.
But, as an American that wants to vote and participate, I'd still say register, go vote if you can.
If you register anytime in the past, don't worry, we'll find you, okay? So it's out there. So Max, and just finally, so for instance, if they want to find you or your company, any information you want to kind of give out in the video, if they want to get in touch with you, I do ask people like to do stuff at the end of the video. So if you want to go through the comments And the hashtag for this, or if you'll just put secure coding in your comments, that way I know you made it to the end of the video. And also, Max, if they want to get in touch with you, or what's the best way for them to get in touch with you or your company or whatever you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I can leave my LinkedIn for you. That's
Okay.
super easy for anyone that wants to connect.
Okay, and I can put it
Um,
in. I'll put it if you. I'll put it in the description of the video for anybody who wants to LinkedIn. Okay,
sure.
and
Let me
then
send that to you.
okay, cool, and any other information. But you have anything else Max, at this point? All right, you see it on the screen, guys.
No,
So
that's pretty much all.
okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say I appreciate you doing this. We'll see what kind of responses we get on the video, and then if there's something we maybe want to do a follow up or a deep dive into it. I love these type of things because I'm not on the coding side, although my background is in. That's what my degree is in software engineering technology, basically. But I'm far from that now. So, but it's something I do need to stay up on because there are opportunities all the time where we have customers who may be compromised and they're asking us questions, and we need to be able to answer those questions. So, even if you're not a developer. So, but anyway, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to track Max's information out and hit him up if you're looking for services from his company. Thanks for watching.